What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show Recap with Mo. Well, we're getting ready to get into another episode breakdown of Tyler Perry's Ruthless. But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit that's going down, alright? So the episode we're getting ready to get into is for season 4, episode number 15, titled Do or Die. Now, the synopsis for this episode states, Desiree and Kal formulate a tricky plan after being outsmarted by the highest, and Lacey gives Laura valuable advice to remain alive. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing. All right. So we kicked this episode off where we left off on the previous episode. Remember how Desiree and Kal were trying to outsmart the highest and catch him on the road in that Rolls Royce that just so happens to be stolen? Well, we see it creeping up on the FBI while they're in the middle of the road, and Desiree instructs them to stop the vehicles and to get out. As they proceed to get out, they find out very quickly that the highest is nowhere in the picture. So, of course, Desiree's first question is, where's the highest? Oh, well, he's back at the compound. Desiree is like, oh, is he really? Well, do you happen to know that this car is stolen? Old boy's like, oh, no, this vehicle belongs to the highest. And, of course, Kal's sitting there impatiently just ready to pounce on anybody and everybody. It's like, look, okay, enough is enough. Let's see if the highest will get you up out of jail or whatnot. And of course, old boy stands 10 toes down at the age of 16. It's like, well, let it be what it be. I was like, oh, man. Oh my gosh, man. So, of course, they're getting ready to take them off to jail. Desiree and Kal walk off to the side, and Desiree is like, man, he's like one step ahead of us or whatnot. And Kal is like, so you think? And so as Desiree is telling them to search the cars and impound the cars and all of that good stuff, he was like, okay, so now what? She was like, okay, well, we just go back to the station and wait for the warrant. Well, if you recall, that whole warrant situation, since, Aaron had already reached out to his father, it's a no-go. So he was like, okay, well, the senator has already conveyed that, he's already spoken to his son. So do you think he's actually going to do it at this point? Because the senator believes that everything is good. So going on from there, she decides to release the kids and send them back to the compound with the vehicles, right? So she allows them to drive off. Of course, Kal is like, what the heck are you doing? She was like, look, I got this. Don't worry about it, right? And Kal is looking like, okay, I'm supposed to be your partner in all of this, but you're not letting me know what's going down. Why are you changing your mind? Well, Kal, is due to the fact that she just had this small little conversation with you about Mac and her, his whereabouts. Have you seen him? And she's thinking that he was the one that gave up the information about not driving the car, or at least passing that information on to the sheriff. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Going on from there, though, we head over to the forest where we see the highest Daikon, and of course we see Joan with him. So they're meeting up so they can actually get into this black van and ride out to the banks, right, to collect the money. So, when they get there, the highest is like, okay, so what's going on? Like, that was real close. And he was like, why do they want to catch me anyhow? Why do they want to arrest me, right? And, Daikon tells him that it's due to the fact that the Rolls Royce is stolen. And the highest is like, oh no, Daikon, you have mistaken. It was given to me by the raccoon, all right? And of course, Daikon goes along with him, and he was like, you're right. So anyhow, they load into this van so they can go collect the money, right? So going on from there, we head over to the compound where we see Sister Ruth. Now, Sister Ruth is walking towards the most famous bus on the compound. The bus where everything has gone down, from sex scenes to murders to all types of stuff has gone down in this bus, y'all. And right now, Sister Ruth is coming in there to find these keys so she can find out where in the heck is her daughter. So when she gets in there, she's looking, but she cannot find. And as she's looking, there is someone that actually finds her looking where she cannot find anything, and it just so happens to be Lewis. So when Lewis gets on the bus, he was like, Ruth, what are you doing in here? Ruth goes on to convey to him that, look, I'm trying to find out where my kid is, and I'm trying to find these keys. I'm doing anything possible at this moment to find my child so I can get up out of here. He was like, look, ain't nothing good off in here. She's like, okay, what's up? What's good? Like, what you got to tell me? Because at this point, you're hindering me from getting what I need to get to, which is my daughter. And he was like, look, we're getting ready to go. She was like, okay, but I don't have my daughter. My daughter isn't back. He was like, okay, I know that. But then he goes on to tell her, look, I promise you when I get back and you give me the money, I'll come back and get your daughter. And she was like, okay. And then he was like, as a matter of fact, why don't you just go get the money now? Just, why hesitate? Why wait, Ruth? Ain't nobody up there. You know where the money at. Go ahead and get it. You talking about his $300K, $400K, almost $400K. That's what you were going to give him, right? Well, there's a whole lot more up there that you could get to. So Ruth is like, well, actually, I can't get to it right now because, there's somebody up there guarding the trailer or whatnot. Is that one of your guys? He was like, no. So Ruth is like, okay, well, we'll have to wait until my daughter gets back. And then, by the way, is Bridget good with all of this? And he was like, yeah. So while we're talking about Sister Bridget, outside of the bus, we see Ruth getting off the bus, walking to the left, and then we see Lewis following directly behind her, and he exits and goes out the right. So I'm like, oh, hell no. So I already know what's going through Bridget's mind. Bridget is watching all of this go down, watching her man get off the bus directly behind Ruth, who she feels like he has strong feelings for, probably done got some whoop whoop up in there, and now all of a sudden she doesn't trust him. Already know what it is. And to be honest with y'all, she hasn't trusted him from the very beginning. If you think about it, I mean, everybody get down with the get down in the compound. You see what I'm saying? And she knows that. And she knows that Lewis is out here getting it and doing it well with anybody he can get his hands to. So, I mean, it is what it is, Bridget. You're going to have to... You're going to have to just deal with it, right? If you want to get up out. It is what it is. So anyhow, going on from there, we head over to the wash trailer where we see Lacey and the new sister Laura, right? So they're finishing up the wash for the day before breakfast, and the elder mother is coming over to make sure that everything is going as planned. And she asked Laura how Lacey was doing. Of course, Lacey is like, well, she's doing pretty well, for the most part and all of that good stuff, right? So the elder mother is pleased, and she was like, okay, I'm just so glad when we are all obedient to the Raku and that we're just doing what we're supposed to do. And then she was like, once you guys finish this, let me know and we'll get you up out of here so you can go eat with the rest of them, because she wants everybody to see her in her bright red robe to warn them not to make the same mistake that she did. And then she gives Lacey this look and then all of a sudden starts smiling. I was like, what the what the hell is going on with the elder mother? So anyhow, she leaves, right? And Laura is like, okay, is she gone? Yeah, she gone. How did I do? She was like, yeah, you did good, but don't act too clear. You know what I'm saying? Because, she knows, like, she'll end up trying to give you some of that stuff to drink again. And she was like, oh, no, we can't do that, right? So anyhow, going on from there, Lacey is like, okay, real quick, who do I need to talk to, or who can I talk to about finding out the whereabouts of my husband? Lacey is like, well, you could talk to River, but, you got to get him by himself or whatnot. He possibly will know what's going on with your husband. She was like, well, is he trustworthy? And she was like, yeah, he could be. For the most part, he could be. But we're going to leave it at that because we'll talk about River. Well, as a matter of fact, since we're already talking about River, let's go ahead and get into this, because we see Sister Ruth out there in the back where the vehicles are. Now, she's trying to get in the back of this trunk for some daggone reason. I'm not for sure why. I guess she's assuming that maybe she can find some documentation in the back of the car. I'm quite sure the kids are not in the back of the car, Ruth. I'm just not sure. But since we're talking about River, River pops out of nowhere. He scares her half to death. And she was like, what the hell? Like, bro, like, you just can't be doing that. And I'm like, bro, like she stated earlier with the highest, like he's like a little gnat. And of course, the highest didn't like that comment, but shit, it's true. Like, what's those lyrics like? She got fleas, she's fly, she's a gnat, 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 gnat. I was like, man, get the hell. Why are you over here? Like I'm out in the middle of nowhere. You over here bothering me right now. So anyhow, Ruth is like, okay, what do you want, River? River's like, look, what are you doing? She was like, look, I'm looking for my daughter. He was like, so you think she's in the trunk? She was like, well, don't say that. Well, okay, we got to be real about this situation. He's telling Ruth, like, okay, what if they're not coming back? She was like, okay, what are you saying? What do you know? He was like, I don't know shit. But at the same time, we have to consider these facts that they could be getting what they're getting and never come back, right? And that's the realest stuff you've spoken thus far, River. Like for real, for real. And of course, she's emotional about it because she wants to find her daughter and get out of this situation. But she knows that she cannot give up hope because she believes that she's going to find her daughter, right? So River's like, look, I got something else to bring to your attention. Like, we got a problem. She was like, okay. We always got a daggone problem. We here. We got a problem, all right? And it was like, look, let's be real. The guard that I told you about, he's in a punishment trailer, right? And she was like, okay. So what are you saying, River? Are you stating that, you're going to give me up? And he was like, oh, no, I would never do that. But will you give Lacey up? Yeah. Will you give Joan up? Yeah, I would. But you wouldn't give me up? No, I wouldn't. How the hell that sound, River? Ruth is like, hold on, wait a minute. If you're willing to give those two up, then you'll definitely give me up to save yourself. And he was like, look, we're in this together. Like, you and me, we could do some things outside these walls. She was like, look, I ain't going nowhere without my daughter. So you're going to have to wait, River. Unfortunately, it is what it is. At this moment, she tells him that, the stuff that he's looking for, she can't get to. It's locked up. So River's like, okay, so when did they start doing that? She was like, well, when Tally was in there, she thought she was actually getting rid of it. But unfortunately, whatever happened. And they started locking it up or whatnot. So she was like, well, why don't you just go get rid of him, right? And he was like, I mean, what? He's a soldier. She was like, okay, so what are you? Aren't you a soldier? Do what you need to do, soldier. All right? So moving on from there, we head over to the punishment trailer where we see Malcolm and Peter. So Peter is steadily telling this man to shut the heck up. I don't want to hear from you. You keep talking, and I'm just going to deal with this punishment. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, Malcolm is laughing his ass off right now because he was like, you put all your trust in this man, this man is fooling y'all. And he was like, man, listen, don't say anything else to me, right? So he was like, look, the highest? His name is Tyrone Luckett. I was like, oh, shit. Okay, some intel, do tell. So anyhow, Malcolm goes on to tell him that, the highest was in prison for robbery and for child endangerment and a long list of other things, right? And then he was like, while he was in prison, he was getting beat up every day. They were going to Pound Town on him and all of this different stuff. And I was like, oh, hell no, right? And then he goes on to say that Viacom was his protector in prison. And he tells him that his name is Anthony, and they actually fell in love in prison. I was like, hell no. What in the world is going on here? So, Malcolm goes on to tell Peter that he knows about his situation as well. Like, he probably picked you up off of a bus stop while you was out there selling that thing. And he was like, look, man, just shut the hell up. So, Peter doesn't want to hear it. He's telling him to shut his mouth. He's telling him that the government would never show up. And Malcolm is like, well, I'm here. Look at it in all of its glory. The government is here. And once the real government comes, all of this is going to be shut down. And you better be ready to die for them. All right. So anyhow, since we're talking about the government, let's go ahead and head back over to the sheriff's office where we see Desiree and Kal going through their books, researching what they need to find out, and in walks an agent with some intel. So this agent tells them that the Hyatts and his folks have been to 7 banks in total. They've gone all the way to North Carolina at some point in time to go get this money. And I was like, damn, these jokers are not playing, right? Because they out here getting this bread. So the agent goes on to tell Desiree and Kal that they've withdrawn about $3 million per bank. And I was like, damn, okay. So where do we go from here? No, that ain't it. I was like, what? That ain't it? He was like, no. What else do you have? Do tell. So he goes on in and says, this is the woman who is the mastermind behind this. She's the accountant for the Rakadushi compound. She just so happened to be an ex-CPA. I was like, damn, okay. But that ain't all though. I was like, for real? He was like, no, do tell, right? And he was like, look, there's another business account titled Bluegill account that has 2 board members on it. She just so happens to be one, and the other one just so happens to be the new Sister Laura. I was like, damn. What? Oh my gosh. I knew something wasn't right. I knew it. Anyhow, let me keep going, y'all. This is too good, man. Not only that, they're asking about where are they getting the money from. They're asking about Lilo, all of that good stuff, right? He cannot be found, of course, because we already know where he is, but he's currently under investigation by the ATF. But getting back on this situation with Laura and daggone Joe, for real? All this is getting good. So when the agent shows Laura's picture to Desiree is like, hey, that's Laura. That's Aaron's wife. And they're like, well, do you think Aaron was in on it? And of course, they were like, no, his parents got a whole bunch of money. That ain't really what they, that's not what they're into. But they can foresee Laura going up there along with Joan, getting as much money as possible from the Rakadushis. Ooh, yeah, like I said, man, this is getting deep. Moving on from there, y'all. We see Kal and Desiree finishing their conversation. They're talking about, dealing with the Hyatts. Do they want to catch him on the street? They know that he's heavily armed and whatnot. So they're not willing to take that chance at this moment. Desiree still wants to talk to Aaron's father. And then also they call Agent Black over there to get some intel about the whereabouts of Mac. So the agent comes over to tell Kal and Desiree pretty much that, she was on the sheriff, so she wasn't really trailing, Mac at all. But Desiree alludes to the fact that she left a camera in a car outside of his hotel room or motel room, whatever you want to call it, right? So they were able to keep up with the time that he left and the times that he would return. Now, of course, Kal is feeling some type of way about this because he's already had a conversation with his woman. And Desiree doesn't seem to understand what he's talking about when he's saying being transparent. I'm your partner. But yet and still you keep withholding stuff from me. And at this point, I'm done. Because you're on community property and I'm trying to work through this, but daggone it, you're making it worse and worse and worse. Can't trust her, bro. Can't trust her. Don't save her. She don't wanna be saved. Don't save. Leave her. Moving on, man. Oh yeah. So once Kal finally gets himself together, he was like, okay, so we obviously don't trust Mac. You're telling me that you think that he and the sheriff are too daggone close. So we're going to pretty much put together a plan that, I can feed him some information and see where that goes, right? And she was like, okay, let's do it. So anyhow, going on from there, we head back over to the compound where we see both George and Lewis, right? So they're standing outside the gate and in walks Bridget. Bridget has 2 glasses of sweet tea, and she's coming out there to quote-unquote water the men. That's what they call it, right? So, of course, Lewis is like, what the hell you doing out here? She was like, look, I come to bring y'all a nice cold beverage, right? And, of course, she was like, do you want some? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, don't drink it. You don't know what Bridget got off in there. You don't know what she got in there, bro. And George is like, no, I'm good. Like, he the smart one. Like, no, I don't know what you got off in there. For real, for real. No, I'm good. And George is like, shit, I could be hot and sweaty at the same damn time and be all right and still survive off of this joke. I ain't mad at you, bro. But anyhow, Bridget doesn't leave after giving them the iced tea. They were like, okay, are you done? She was like, no, I got something to say. Lewis, why were you talking to Ruth? He was like, man, don't do that. She was like, no, I want to know. Lewis is like, look, you tripping right now. You know it's just me and you. You the only girl for me. But you need to get your ass back in this gate and stop with all this foolishness, right? So she heads back in. She's apologetic and all of that stuff. And George is like, look, man, I told you. He was like, man, we got this. We're going to be good. She going to be all right. So when they're in the midst of talking, they see the Rolls Royce and the truck coming back to the compound. So they was like, what the hell? Like, who's off in here? So they called Viacom because of what the young guys told him that the FBI let them go. Woo, woo, woo. So, long story short, Viacom and the Hyas thought that was strange that they were looking to arrest the Hyas inside of the stolen vehicle, but you allowed the stolen vehicle, quote unquote, to come back to the compound without any arrest. So Viacom is like, look, your Highness, I'm on it. I'm going to call Sheriff Conley to see if he knows anything, and we'll go from there. So he calls the sheriff. The sheriff is like, what's good? What you got? He tells him that they stopped the Rolls Royce, but they did not arrest anybody, and they sent him back to the compound. He was like, well, that's odd. Yeah, that's odd. But I don't know what else to tell you. And Viacom is like, look, I need you to look a little bit deeper into it. He tells Viacom, look, I don't work for you, boy. And then he hangs up in Viacom's face. But before he does get off the phone, he does ask Viacom when they were going to go pick up Aaron from the back of the car, who's still locked up in the trunk presently, right? And he tells him that they're going to actually do it when they return back to town, right? Because they're out of state. So he was like, okay, make sure you do that. So anyhow, when he gets off the phone, Joan speaks out of turn, and she states that she never trusted the sheriff. Both the Highest and Viacom were like, who? Who is that? How did you know it was the sheriff? That's what the Highest is asking Joan, right? Joan is like, oh, I just assumed it was the sheriff. He was like, don't assume nothing. As a matter of fact, stay in your place as a woman. I was like, damn. And I'm like, daggone it, Joan. Like, if you trying to get up out of this, you're doing a bad job right now. Like, I know you're trying to get on the Highest side and whatnot, but you know how they think. So in order for you to get out of here alive, you got to learn how to play the game. And right now, you just showed your hand. So the Highest stated that he trusted you earlier, but I'm not sure if he's going to trust you again. We will find out. So anyhow, going on from there, we head back over to the sheriff's office where we see Mac has returned to the building, right? So when he comes in, of course, Desiree and Kal are like, oh, we're so glad you're here. Woo, woo, woo. Let's go ahead and get into it. Long story short, they don't trust him. They're not willing to give him any intel that is of significance, but what they will give him is enough to keep him dangling, right? So, of course, Kal is like, well, do you want to see Andrew? Mac is like, no, man, I'm just so disappointed in him. I'm just so mad about this whole situation. I don't even know what I would say to him. Shit, what would you say to him, right? Because y'all on the same team. I mean, technically. But we'll get into that at a later date. But, yeah, he's just so disappointed in Andrew and just can't believe that he's fallen, right? So, of course, they was like, well, we were quite sure that you would want to talk to him and, give him his best wishes or something, some type of encouragement, right? And then Kal pats him on the back. So I didn't know if he was placing something on his clothing or not, but I'm not too keen on people touching me, definitely if I don't trust you, right? Or if I feel like I'm being investigated, I don't know what you're putting on me, right? So anyhow, he was like, well, is the sheriff in? And they were like, oh, yeah, he's back in his office. So he goes back there and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and talk to him real quick. And they both look at one another when he leaves. So I was like, okay, did they just place something on this man's back, right? And I was like, hell no, I know they didn't do that. But anyhow, going on from there, we head back over to the compound where we see River is now talking to Lacey. He's trying to figure out what he can do to get rid of Peter before Peter gets rid of him. Essentially, that's what he's trying to do. And Lacey is like asking all of these questions like, okay, why you need to get into the food trailer? Why do you need that? Who are you trying to get rid of? Woo, woo, woo. He goes on in to tell her about Peter, that situation where they were trying to get up out. So she was like, oh, so you were trying to get away without me. He was like, no, that wasn't the plan. She was like, yes, it was. So you, Ruth, and all of y'all got y'all own little plan going on, right? Because you typically tell me every daggone thing, River, but you didn't tell me about your little boo thing getting you up out of here. So no, I don't even trust y'all. And then she walks off. So now River is left questioning who's really on his side. And right now, all you got is the Lord, not the Raku. All you you got a friend in me. Anyhow, let me move on, man. So going on from there, we head over to the car where we see Aaron is still handcuffed in the back in the trunk, right? So Aaron is like, man, I got to get up out of here, right? So he starts to kick. He starts to kick harder and harder to knock the back seat out. So eventually he does. He accomplished his goal at that point in time. And I was like, how the hell he gonna get up out of here? But he gets up out, rolls up out. Opens that door, get up out of there, does what he needs to do, and then he's off to the run, right? So that's pretty much the end of the episode, y'all. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this recap and review. Sorry for being so late. As you can tell, my nose is still stopped up a little bit, but I was super excited about getting on here and recording this for you all. Thank you guys for your support. Please make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down. Be on the lookout for Sisters tomorrow night. Also, look out for BMF tomorrow night as well. What else do I have? Oh, Tyler Perry's Bros. Somebody did DM me talking about it wasn't out yet, but it's actually available on BET+. So those 2 episodes will be up later on this week as well. And what else do I have? Oh, also for Thursday night, I have another episode of Ruthless coming out. So be on the lookout for that as well. As always, man, make sure y'all stay up, be good. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.